Hey guys, MichaelBtheGameGenie here, and this is just a fun video today. A lot of people are left scratching their head after Arcade1Up announced the XL series instead of announcing NFL Blitz, as it seems we're getting more cabinets based on cabinets they've already released. Is this a year of rehashes for Arcade1Up? Do they have nothing else left to release? Well, let's talk about what is left to release based on something they said a couple years ago what Arcade1Up's roadmap was. Let's take a look at it right after this. What is up, everybody? Hope you guys are all having an awesome day. Anyways, last week, Arcade1Up prided themselves on a big reveal of a new cabinet, and when it was announced, it wasn't a new arcade title being released, much like everybody thought it was going to be, but in fact, a new cabinet design and the re-release of NBA Jam in the new Shaq edition in an XL size cabinet. Now, while people think that's really cool, and it friggin' is, especially when we found out what the potential price point would be later on, what was disappointing to some people is they were under the impression this was going to be a new arcade game reveal from Arcade1Up. And a lot of people keep saying stuff like this is the year of the rehashes and Arcade1Up doesn't have anything else to put out and Arcade1Up just want to keep using the same licenses over and over again. Well, that's the question. Are Arcade1Up out of arcade titles they can release? We've heard John D say many times over, 2022 is going to be a big year for Arcade1Up, and Justin Console Kits, who has a bit of a relationship with John D and Arcade1Up back from the 1UP Weekly days, and other people have said they do have a bunch of titles coming out this year, but what could they potentially be? I won't say any specific predictions because, as you know, with my NFL Blitz Shaq's Funhouse predictions, I probably shouldn't be making them, but one area to turn on where we can expect to see Arcade1Up go with future releases is something they stated was their roadmap. A long time ago in one of these talking head shows, I think it was 1UP Weekly, and a direct interview with John D, he said Arcade1Up's roadmap was based on the 50 greatest or best-selling arcade games of all time. So let's look to that list and see what Arcade1Up has already brought out and what they could potentially bring out in the upcoming years. So I don't know if there's one specific list. I mean, in terms of quality, if you're going with the 50 best arcade games, it's all subjective, but I kind of like this list coming up from Give Me Sport. So if you take a look at the list from Give Me Sport, numbers 50 to 31, at 50 we've got Golden Axe, which we've already seen coming from the Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder cabinet. We've got Afterburner, which a lot of people have been asking for, but I think they would have to do it in a different form factor than the original cabinet in order to make it work, but people could still do that. We've got NBA Jam, which we've seen, and now we've recently seen again with the Shaq Edition XL. Popeye 1982, which a lot of people would love, but unfortunately that's Nintendo, so it's a little tough. We've seen a Final Fight cab. Elevator Action isn't one we've seen already, so that's a possibility. Battlezone, I'm not familiar with Battlezone, but I think that will be another hard one to do, because if I'm not mistaken, that has a very specific control set where you have to look into a periscope to use it. Robotron 2084. Now, why is that one familiar? Yeah, like I've been saying over and over again, Arcade1Up, Robotron. Just make it. Do Mikey B a favor, will ya? So then we go down to Moon Patrol, which is another one that I think classic arcade collectors would love to see, but I don't know if that would have the retail appeal they're looking for. Arkanoids, same story. And then we've got Outrun, of course, which Arcade1Up have already done. Commando, which hasn't got its own standalone cabinet, but has been found on the Capcom Legacy Edition cabinet, and the Capcom Street Fighter cocktail table was on that as well. Track and Field, which I've predicted and rumors have said possibly is coming in the next year. Pong, which we saw last year, unfortunately not in a standalone cabinet, but in that pub table, which I don't know if that was the right direction to go with it. I mean, it's beautiful and it's cool, but a lot of people probably would have preferred a regular Pong cabinet. 1943, which I'm not surprised by. We've seen 1944, of course, on the Final Fight cab and on the Capcom Legacy, but we haven't seen any of the vertical games in the series. 1943. They just recently came out with, a Replicade for 1943, so maybe this is something Arcade1Up can look at in the future. Dragon's Lair, which we know Dragon's Lair is coming in the future. We're all really excited about that. Simpsons arcade game, which was probably the big one released last year. Missile Command, we've never seen it get its own standalone cabinet, but Missile Command has been included with the Centipede Cab originally, the Atari 12-in-1, and now the Atari Legacy. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, of course, has been released twice. Burger Time, the infamous Burger Time cabinet. So, a lot of these have already been released by Arcade1Up. So, if you're talking about the 50 greatest arcade games of all time in the roadmap, seems like we're onto something right now. Number 30 is a absolute shock to me, Bubble Bobble. I know that, I think it is Quarter Arcades or Replicade is doing a Bubble Bobble cabinet now, and I know At Games has Bubble Bobble art with their Taito pack, but I always considered Bubble Bobble to be more of an NES game than an arcade game, so I do find that strange, but hey, it's there. Tempest, 1980. We've seen Tempest with the new Atari Legacy cabinet. It's beautiful. Wish I had a vertical screen. Donkey Kong Jr., again, unfortunately, Nintendo. Paperboy, we have seen included on an Arcade1Up cabinet. Unfortunately, it's in the Midway Legacy and has some of the worst controls of all time. I think John Diaz said it. If they did it, it would have to be in a standalone cabinet, so it's a little bit complicated to do. Star Wars, of course, my favorite Arcade1Up cabinet to date. Q*bert. Oh, P-Dubs would love you. We know John Diaz stated they do have the license to Q*bert. They're just trying to figure out if they can make it work at retail, because right now it's got a unique control schematic. They'd only be able to put 2 games on it, maybe 3, Q*bert and Q*bert Cubes, because they got to be made by the same distributor. I don't know who owns them now. I think Gottlieb originally released Q*bert. Rampage, we've seen a standalone Rampage cabinet, and Rampage is included on Midway Legacy. Galaxian's been included on the Galaga cabinet, and now most of the Namco releases. Spy Hunter, I'm surprised by. It's a cool cabinet, but I didn't expect to see it so high here, so Spy Hunter is another possibility. Then we've also got Frogger 1981. We've seen Frogger already. I have Frogger, but we'd love to get another one with at least the correct art. If it's possible, no screen filtering. Tron was the big surprise release from this year. They didn't think it would do very well. It ended up selling a bunch of units. Beautiful cabinet. Great job on Tron. Punch-Out, I again prefer the NES game or like the console game. But man, oh man, I know a lot of people would love Punch-Out, Arcade1Up. I don't know if you got to make a deal with the devil, what you got to do. You need to get on that for Nintendo. That one would be a little bit tough because that one has a dual screen. So I don't know how Arcade1Up would do that. Maybe you could do a vertical screen and split them. I don't know. Pole Position 1982. At some point, this has to be one of the racers they bring out. I think the focus with the racers right now and the pull from the community mostly and from mainstream is to do more in the modern racers, but I know there's a bunch of classic racers out there that would love to see this. The only problem is I think this is a lot like Frogger in the sense that Pole Position was originally a Namco game, but the art, it was released in an Atari cabinet, so I don't know if they'd be able to do this and get the right cabinet art. I don't know how that works from a licensing perspective. Mortal Kombat 1992, we've seen several iterations of Mortal Kombat release, but it's going to get its own standalone cabinet with the Mortal Kombat 30th Anniversary cabinet coming out later this year. Sans the Johnny Cage artwork on the side. Joust, speaking of Mortal Kombat, Joust will be on that cabinet, but yet we have not seen a Joust standalone cabinet. Street Fighter, much like Commando, has been on the cocktail cabinet, and it's also on Capcom Legacy, but we've never seen a standalone Street Fighter cabinet. Double Dragon. Double Dragon is one people have been asking for a while. It'd be really cool to see one with Double Dragon 2, and Double Dragon 3. A lot of the problem is, go back and look at the art for the original Double Dragon arcade cabinet. It's not a pretty picture, so it'd be hard to do that one accurately. And also, I don't know if they're as interested where these games came out on the iArcade, so it's already been released, and it kind of waters down the expectation for an Arcade1Up release. Street Fighter 2 coming in 1992. How many iterations have we seen of Street Fighter 2? That one's been covered in spade. Defender, we have seen Defender on several cabinets. Rampage, Midway Legacy, finally got its own dedicated Midway Legacy cab, but with the wrong controls. Everybody absolutely loves the Partycade. Hopefully they give us a Defender with the right controls at some point. I would definitely be interested in that. Gauntlet, again, Midway Legacy. A lot of people have been looking that way. And then we get down to 10-1. And surprisingly, right at the top, 1942. Falls into that same category with 1943. A dedicated vertical Capcom shooter would be really cool. Centipede at 1980, which is also very interesting. I have a Centipede cab. We're getting a new Centipede Atari Legacy, but with a vertical monitor. But man, it's beautiful. Number 8, Mario Bros. 1983. Nintendo, again, moving on. Asteroids, we've seen Asteroids come out with its own cabinet in the original set of releases. Then we got an Asteroids Deluxe. But Asteroids, I think, now will be found on the Atari Legacy cabs going forward. Dig Dug. God bless Dig Dug. Dig Dug at one point got its own Partycade, or Countercade, I think they're called. Sorry, not Partycade, Countercade. It's been included on Miss Pac-Man, several of the Namco Legacy cabinets, and other Namco cabinets like Super Pac-Man. I don't think we'll ever get a 3/4 Dig Dug, maybe with another Namco re-release. That'd be a good one. It's a cool-looking cabinet. Miss Pac-Man, of course, we've got in spades. Space Invaders, we got one time, and unfortunately, the release wasn't very good. Hopefully, they give us a revamped Space Invaders at one point. P-Dub suggested maybe even a Taito Legacy cabinet. A lot of people's number one most requested cabinets, Donkey Kong. Again, the only way this is going to happen is if Big N does it. We'd love to see it Donkey Kong Jr., and Donkey Kong 3 all on one cabinet. Pac-Man's been done to pieces, and a lot of times when Pac-Man's done, Galaga's included with it. We've seen two different variants of Galaga in the 3/4 scale. The original Galaga and Galaxian, and now a Namco Legacy cabinet branded after Galaga. So guys, that's the top 50 according to this poll, but again, it's subjective. But as you can see, most of our Arcade1Up's releases have already been released, and some of the rumored ones are there as well. You will notice no Smash TV, however, Robotron 2084 made the list. No Smash TV, Robotron. Now, which cabinet would you make if you were Arcade1Up? Anyways, that's just looking at it. That's a purely subjective list. Let's go to something a little less subjective, and then let's look at the top 50 grossing arcade games of all time. Alright, so for this, we're going to go to good old Wikipedia. I went through a bunch of lists, and everything's all over the place. Wikipedia seemed like the most somewhat reliable place to go to, so we'll start there. So at number 50, we've got Mahjong Fight Club 3. I don't think they're going to make that one. Space Duel, which we have seen Space Duel, but as an add-on to the Atari Legacy cabinet. Stargate is one we would love to see. If they ever do a proper Defender cabinet with proper controls, love to see Stargate included. Battlezone, like I mentioned earlier, that's the tank game with the very specific periscope controls. That'd be a hard one to do. That falls into the Paperboy category if they could ever do it. This is obviously not something we would see here. Mushi King. Champion Baseball, I'm not familiar with. Scramble. Now, I'm not personally familiar with Scramble, but Scramble, released in 1981, sold 15,136 units. Berserk. Now, this is a game I would love to see. Hopefully, Berserk shows up on an Arcade1Up cabinet. If it doesn't get its own, hopefully it can be an included game on another. Missile Command, like we've mentioned, we've seen that a bunch of times on the Atari Legacy and going all the way back to the Centipede cab. Got another Atari game coming up here, Asteroids Deluxe, and there it is, Dragon's Lair, which is probably my next intended purchase on my list. Dragon's Lair is the next Arcade1Up cabinet that I think is going to be close enough to the original and interesting enough that I have to have it in my arcade. So we know Dragon's Lair is coming. I had no idea there was a Pokemon game. I wish this was a US-only list, but then again, that wouldn't be fair. Don't expect to see any of these titles showing up in North America through Arcade1Up. Killer Instinct, they just released, and people seem pretty happy with that, and it will be the first in the Pro line of cabinets as well. Raiden, or Raiden, I don't know how you want to say it, is another scrolling shooter. I love the game. I play a bunch of it on consoles. I had it on my TurboGrafx 16. Love Raiden. Oh, I remember this now. Jungle Hunt, originally named Jungle King in the arcades. You can actually find both models. Was originally released and then taken back because there was too much of a tie-in licensing issue with Tarzan, so they had to change it around. Here's something people have been asking for a ton of times, and I've never ever considered it as something Arcade1Up should consider, but man, Tekken, there's a lot of people out there that love Tekken in the arcade. Tekken Tag Tournament, I don't know if that would be able to work on Arcade1Up's current hardware, but, people want Tekken at least. Pump It Up, I have no idea what that is, but it looks like more Dance Dance Revolution, and I've already said Arcade1Up should really consider doing something Dance Dance Revolution. Versus Super Mario Brothers, never gonna happen. Popeye, same category, it's Nintendo, unfortunate. Dig Dug, we've talked about that. Dig Dug, would love to see it get its own standalone cabinet. Hopefully, if they do a second in this branding of the Namco Legacy, the new one that's coming out is Pac-Mania, hopefully the second branding is Dig Dug. I think they'll do well on that. Pole Position, which I hope for classic arcade enthusiasts is the next racer to come out from Arcade1Up. I know you guys are throwing tomatoes at me right now because you want to see Daytona or Rush, but a lot of classic arcade people love Pole Position. Oh, look at this. Robotron 2084. That game's familiar. Again, Arcade1Up. Notice on this list, Robotron 2084. Nowhere will you see Smash TV. Just saying. So again, Robotron 2084 with Smash TV, nowhere to be seen. Moving along, we've got Darkstalkers The Night Warriors. We have received a Darkstalkers release on the Capcom Legacy Edition, and now we're getting the whole series on Big Blue Street Fighter 2. So Darkstalkers has been represented. I know some people want to see a dedicated cabinet. Mortal Kombat, yeah, we've talked about that. That's coming out. Beat Mania, I'm not familiar with at all. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, yeah, we've got that in spades. Hopefully they come out with an XL one or Pro one at some point. Oh, Q*bert, again, my buddy P-Dubs. Everybody wants to see it. Arcade1Up have the license. It's only a matter of time. Tempest, we got to this just this past year. Frogger, of course, we're hoping that a Konami Legacy comes out or another Frogger cabinet with at least the right art, no screen filter. Mortal Kombat 2. I always make a joke, Mortal Wombat 2, when I see it, but Mortal Kombat 2, one of my favorite arcade games of all time. Greatest list of fatalities. I can spend just as much time dicking around trying to do all the fatalities as I can actually playing against other people. Looking forward to when the new Mortal Kombat cab comes out to be able to play this online with other people. World Club Champion Football, I'm not familiar with. I don't really think that's not applicable. NBA Jam, the new Shaq edition coming out. Hopefully they do another XL cab with the correct art on the side panel. I'd be all over that. You can tell right here from the form factor. Form factor's on the money, so it's just the new Shaq art that's throwing it off. Virtua Fighter 3, which I don't think they'd be able to do Virtua Fighter 3. That's Dreamcast level. I think it's Dreamcast level, yeah. And but I think Virtua Fighter is another one. I scoffed at it when I saw some of the fake graphics that were made up for a Virtua Fighter cabinet, but I think there might be something there. I think there will be a fan base all over Virtua Fighter, and especially now that they've got the option to do the online fighting. Final Fight, God bless Final Fight. I love that cabinet, and again, it's back on Capcom Legacy. Outrun, they've already released. A great choice for the first racing cabinet. Karate Champ, we've seen it, but in the Burger Time cabinet. I don't think we'll get another Karate Champ cabinet. I don't think it'll ever come out. Hopefully, you'll get to see Karate Champ again on a Data East Legacy cabinet. Mr. Do. Mr. Do is one I hear about all the times. I'm not that familiar with Mr. Do, but a lot of people have asked for it. Donkey Kong Jr. would fit in well if they made a Donkey Kong cabinet. Tekken again. There we go. Olympic Hero, of course, Track and Field, we think is coming out later this year. Star Horse is a Sega race. I have no idea what that is. Tekken again. I mean, Tekken prints money. I don't know why Arcade1Up haven't taken a harder look at it. Virtua Fighter, I'm massively amazed these did so well in terms of selling units. So anyways, Tekken and Virtua Fighter are both there. Galaxian, we've seen it. Centipede, of course, we're getting a new one next year. Defender, again, the sales of that countercade, Partycade, hopefully convinces them to do a standalone 3/4 scale or XL. Asteroids, Miss Pac-Man, and there it is, Donkey Kong, the game we all want. Dear God, for Nintendo to call them back. Street Fighter 2, Space Invaders, no surprise, right in the top. No surprise at all here in the top. Last but not least, the cabinet they've sold the most of, and they will not ever stop selling, Pac-Man. So guys, I tried to go through that one a little bit quicker because it took so long with the first one, but as you can see, in terms of the top grossing arcade games, in terms of units sold, it looks like it's a similar list. They seem to be pretty on the nose with what games are where. Arcade1Up have done a really good job of hitting the big titles on both these lists, and you can kind of look at this list for guidance on which other titles are going to come out. Again, I've predicted Track and Field and a Smash TV cabinet. Part of that's based on things I heard, but it also makes sense from this whole roadmap of the top 50. So you can see what else is out there. I mean, some of these fighting cabinets that people want to see, especially with Arcade1Up's seemingly move into the online fighting community right now, really makes sense with Tekken and Virtua Fighter. They may be hot titles for Arcade1Up as well. Anyways, this is just for fun, of course. I don't know anything specific, but going off what John D said way back when about following the roadmap of the top 50 arcade games, and then you do your math and think on what'll sell in retail, you can get a pretty good idea for what else is coming up. Some surprises, of course. You see games like Blitz and other things that people super want not showing up here. No Daytona USA, no San Francisco Rush. But you know what? I think they'll make those games too. I think Arcade1Up has grown so much now that it could even look to expand outside that top 50 as well. Anyways, guys, what do you think of the roadmap? Do you think that this is a good indication of what Arcade1Up will release? Do you think that maybe that roadmap was part of their, I forget what it's called now, strategy a couple years ago, but it's changed since then? Let me know in the comments, guys. Again, this is only for fun. You can also tell me what games you think Arcade1Up should make based off these lists or based off other lists you have. Whatever works. I'm just open to having fun discussions. Anyways, thank you everybody so very much for watching. This is Michael B. the Game Genie, and I'll talk to you next time.